The clink of cutlery, the soft hum of conversation, and the scent of grilled steak lingered in the air. "Tonight's about family," Dad said, lifting his glass of red wine with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "And the future of the store. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where you're from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what you would do in this situation. Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin." I glanced across the long table at my younger sister, Kelsey. Her glossy hair fell in waves, nails freshly painted, wearing that smug smile she always wore when she was about to win something she didn't deserve. Dad continued, "Your sister will be taking over the store. We've given her full control." I blinked. He said it casually, like it was some obvious next step. Like I hadn't worked at that store every summer since I was 15. Like I hadn't stayed late most nights restocking shelves when Dad was too tired. Like I wasn't the one who handled payroll for 2 years straight while Kelsey was off tanning. In California, I felt heat rise in my chest. Mom let out a laugh, swirling her wine lazily. "At least you'll stay busy. You can help stock shelves if you'd like." I froze. Everyone else at the table was silent. My cousin's eyes dropped to her salad. Aunt Judy sipped her drink and pretended to be fascinated by the bread basket. No one wanted to get involved. Kelsey tilted her head and smirked. "It's really a win-win. I get the freedom to lead, and you get to keep your hands busy." My stomach turned. The steak on my plate suddenly looked like rubber. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I stood up slowly, not angry, not loud. "Come." My voice didn't shake. "I'm glad you made a decision," I said, my gaze locked on Dad. "Because I made one too." Dad leaned back in his chair. "What now, Lily?" I reached into my purse and pulled out a single folded document. I dropped it on the table right beside the dessert menus. "What's this?" Dad asked, annoyed. "Purchase agreement," I said. "I bought out the entire property, the land, the lease. The deed is all under my name." Dead silence. "You what?" Kelsey's voice cracked. I smiled politely. "You might want to read the fine print before you install your new nameplate, sis. Starting Monday, you'll be paying me rent. And next time you send me to stock shelves, remember who signs your checks." Mom's jaw was hanging, literally hanging. Dad reached for the paper, scanning it like it might burst into flames. I could see the panic in his eyes. "You're bluffing," Kelsey said. "There's no way you could afford." I could, and I did. I cut her off. "The lawyer's signature is on the back." Aunt Judy finally put her glass down. "Well, damn." I turned on my heel, heels clicking on the polished wood floor, each step louder than the last. Behind me, Mom whispered. She didn't even finish her dinner. And somewhere, very faintly, someone clapped. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. First, it was a text from Kelsey. "You can't actually be serious, right?" Then another. "This is low even for you." Then Dad. "We need to talk. You've made your point. Now undo this before it gets ugly." But I didn't respond because I was already at the bank. The manager, Mr. Whitaker, gave me a respectful nod as he escorted me to his office. He treated me like just the other daughter when I came to him weeks ago with my business plan and investment proposal. He saw what my parents hadn't for years: potential. "Everything's finalized," he said, sliding a packet toward me. "You now own the deed, the surrounding lot, and the small warehouse next door." I stared down at the papers. I should have felt triumphant, but instead, I felt hollow. All those years, all those holidays working shifts while Kelsey partied in Cabo. The times I'd begged Dad to give me more responsibility, more voice, only to be patted on the shoulder and told, "That's cute, honey." But Kelsey's the face. "You're the hands." It burned. But I wasn't doing this just for revenge. I was doing it because I had finally realized something: I didn't need their approval to build something of my own. Mr. Whitaker looked at me carefully. "You sure you want to keep the store running with them involved?" "I'm not going to shut it down," I replied, voice steady. "I'm going to rebuild it without the rot inside." He nodded. "Then here's your next step." 3 hours later, I walked into the store, my store, and everything stopped. Maria, the cashier, who'd known me since high school, gasped. "Lily." "Hey," I said, smiling. The delivery guys looked confused. "You back working here?" I held up the clipboard I brought. "Nope." Taking over from the office, I heard a screech. "Kelsey." She stormed out, heels clacking against the tile. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, designer jacket half zipped, phone still pressed to her ear. "What are you doing here?" I stepped forward, calm, measured, controlled. "You might want to get off the phone." "Excuse me," she snapped. "Because, as of today, this building belongs to me, and your new lease starts in 30 days. Kelsey's eyes widened. She glanced at the employees now peeking from every aisle. "You're trying to humiliate me." I leaned in slightly. "No. I'm giving you a chance to prove if you were ever actually capable of running something on your own. Sink or swim, sis. Just don't expect me to bail you out." She went pale. "I hope you enjoyed your seat at the table," I added, "because from now on, you'll learn every inch of it." And with that, I walked to the back office and shut the door. Maria stood there, stunned. "Is it true?" I turned to her and smiled genuinely. "Yes. And I'm hiring real managers. No more nepotism." "You in?" Her face lit up. "Hell yes." The store buzzed as the news spread like wildfire. But in the middle of it all, Kelsey just stood there, frozen, watching her little sister walk into what used to be her kingdom, only to realize she'd never owned any of it at all. By the end of the week, the silence from my parents had grown louder than their insults ever had. Until Friday night, the doorbell rang just as I was about to pour myself a glass of wine. I opened it and found Dad on my porch, his hands in his coat pockets, his jaw clenched tight. "I didn't raise you to be spiteful," he said before I could say a word. "No," I replied. "You raised me to be invisible." He flinched. "I came here to fix this," he said, stepping inside without asking. I didn't stop him. I wanted to hear what he had to say. No interruptions, no yelling, just truth. He stood in my modest but clean living room, eyes scanning the space like it didn't fit me. "You blindsided us at dinner. You humiliated me," I replied. He sighed. "Kelsey's always had certain strengths." I raised an eyebrow. "Like never showing up? Like always blaming others for her mistakes?" "She knows how to talk to people. And I know how to run the books. I know how to lead quietly. But that never mattered, did it?" He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years. "You were always reliable. We never had to worry about you." "That's not praise," I said, voice low. "That's neglect." He sat down on the edge of the couch, rubbing his temple. "Your mom said you'd calm down eventually. She thinks you're just bitter." "Bitter?" I laughed bitterly. "I didn't steal anything. I bought what was tossed aside. I earned it. I know." His voice was barely above a whisper. "That's the part I can't stop thinking about." I sat across from him. "Why her, Dad? Why did she always get everything handed to her while I got told to be patient or stay helpful?" He looked away. "Because she was fragile. And you weren't. You were always the strong one, Lily. The one who didn't cry when things got hard. The one who figured things out on her own. We didn't protect you because we didn't think we needed to. And you punished me for being strong." Silence settled between us, thick as winter air. "I'm not undoing the deal," I said after a long pause. "I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because I was done begging." He nodded slowly, eyes glossy. "I guess I never really knew what you needed from me. I needed you to see me," I whispered, "and to stop pretending Kelsey's sparkle made up for her lack of substance." He stood. "She's struggling." This crushed her. "I'm not here to comfort her anymore. That job expired when she laughed at me with Mom while you offered her my life's work." He turned toward the door. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I just don't know how to fix this." "You can't," I said. "But you can start by not pretending it wasn't broken." When he left, I finally poured that wine. My hands shook, not from anger, but from grief. Grieving the parents I thought I had. The version of me I kept trying to become for them. The part of me that was still craving their validation. And in that quiet moment, I finally understood this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about reclaiming my identity, my voice, my worth. And no one, not even the people who raised me, was going to take that away again. 2 weeks later, the town started whispering. First, it was quiet, subtle glances from the bakery staff when I stopped for coffee. Questions laced inside polite hellos from former schoolmates. Then louder. Calls from vendors, emails from suppliers, a few even dropping in at the store unannounced. And the whispers all had one thing in common: Kelsey was failing badly. Inventory hadn't been updated in over a week. Orders were wrong. A local business account pulled out of a bulk deal. 2 employees quit without notice. 1 left a note, taped to the stockroom door. I didn't sign up to babysit a boss who doesn't know what day it is. She was spiraling. And I hadn't even touched her lease deadline yet. The real storm came that weekend. Mom invited me to a family lunch at her house. She used the same tone she always did when trying to control the narrative, as if I were still a teenager and she could lure me in with pot roast and guilt. But I went. I was done avoiding hard conversations. The moment I stepped in, I knew something was off. Kelsey was already seated at the kitchen table, arms folded, hair in a messy ponytail. Her nails were chipped. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Mom was pacing near the stove, her lips pressed so tightly they looked white. Dad stood by the window, silent, looking far older than the man who'd walked into my house days ago. No one said hello. I took a seat, folded my hands, and waited. Mom finally turned. "You've made your point," she said flatly. "I didn't come here to make points. I came because you asked me to. You humiliated your sister," she snapped. I tilted my head. "You mean when she laughed while you offered me shelf stocking as a career path?" "Don't twist this," Kelsey barked. "You're acting like you're some noble hero when really you just wanted revenge." My voice was quiet. "Maybe I did a little, but it stopped being about you the second I realized I could stand on my own." Dad cut in, voice hoarse. "The business is in trouble. We need to fix this together." I met his eyes. "You want my help now?" "Yes," Mom said, crossing her arms. "You wanted power, Lily. Now own the mess." I laughed under my breath. "You know what's wild? You still think I owe you cleanup?" Kelsey threw her hands up. "Oh my God. Here we go. Always the victim." "No," I said calmly. "Not the victim. Just done being the helper in a story I never wrote." Then I opened my purse again and pulled out a folder. "What's that?" Mom asked. I slid it across the table. "A restructure proposal. One that gives the store a chance to survive, but only under one condition." Kelsey leaned in. "You step down," I said, locking eyes with her completely. "No ceremonial title, no shadow role. Gone." Her voice cracked. "You want to erase me?" "No," I said. "I want you to stop pretending you ever cared enough to leave." Mom looked like she might explode. "You're not serious." "I've never been more serious." Kelsey stood. "Then I'd rather burn it all down than let you win." I looked at Dad. He didn't move, so I stood too. Then pack marshmallows, and I walked out. That night, something strange happened. I got a message from Maria. "You're not going to believe who came in," and cried in the break room. I didn't reply. I just stared out the window of my little apartment, city lights flickering beyond the glass, wondering how the same people who raised me could be so blind to my worth, and how satisfying it felt to finally stop begging them to see it, too. Months later, the store had a new rhythm, one built on honesty, efficiency, and accountability. It wasn't perfect. There were hiccups, some drama, and a few tense conversations with longtime staff who'd grown used to looking the other way. But for the first time, it felt alive, profitable, respected. Customers noticed. Vendors noticed. Even a few local blogs wrote pieces like, "How the quiet sister transformed a dying business." But then something unexpected happened. A letter arrived. Not an email, a real physical envelope with our old family store logo in the top left corner, smudged as if it had been handled too many times. Inside, it wasn't from Kelsey. It was from my aunt, Dad's older sister, Diane. We'd never been close. She lived 2 towns over, and after falling out with my parents a decade ago, she'd been basically exiled from holidays, birthdays, everything. Her handwriting was sharp, elegant, deliberate. "Lily, I've been watching from the sidelines for years, and I wanted to say something now, because I think you deserve to know the truth. Your father never wanted to run the store. It was my father's idea, your grandfather. But your dad was soft back then, not business-minded. He wanted to study architecture. It was your mother who forced the family into keeping it in the bloodline. But here's the real reason you were always overlooked. You reminded your mother too much of me. Strong, ambitious, not easily controlled. That terrified her. Kelsey, she was moldable, pretty, obedient. So your mother built her up while quietly crushing the parts of you that scared her. I saw it when you were a child. I see it now. You didn't steal power. You reclaimed what they stole from you first. And if you ever want to talk, I'm here. Please. Your grandfather left a second will. They buried it. I have a copy. I read the letter 3 times. The air felt different after that, like I'd been breathing someone else's version of the truth for years. I called Diane. We talked for 3 hours. She confirmed everything. How my mother manipulated documents. How the business was always meant to be mine. How Kelsey was groomed to replace a daughter who couldn't be controlled. And then she said something I'll never forget. You didn't become the villain in this story, Lily. You became the author. 3 weeks later, I held a staff meeting. Everyone gathered in the back room, even Maria, even the night janitor. I stood at the front, not to gloat, not to dominate, but to lead. I've got one announcement, I said, voice clear. Starting next quarter, employees will have access to profit-sharing bonuses. You helped me rebuild this place. Now you'll benefit from it. The room erupted in applause. People cheered. A few even teared up. It was more than a workplace now. It was proof that surviving isn't the same as living. And thriving feels different when you've had to fight for it. Kelsey moved out of town. Last I heard, she was trying to start a podcast about learning from failure. Maybe she meant it. Maybe not. I didn't care. Either way, I'd stopped writing my life around her approval. My parents, we talk now, less often, but more honestly. Dad apologized again and again. And again. Sometimes he sends photos from the coast where he finally started his dream renovation project, an old fixer-upper he's turning into a beach cabin. I think he's trying. That counts for something. Mom, still cold, still sharp, but quieter. Maybe even watching. 1 year after the dinner where everything broke apart, I sat alone in the same restaurant. Same corner booth, same soft music, same polished silverware. This time, though, I wasn't shaking. This time, I ordered steak, rare, and savored every bite. I didn't need applause. I didn't need them to understand because I had rebuilt something from nothing. Not just a store, but myself. And for the first time in my life, I was fully, unquestionably, and unapologetically mine.